Accessing library computer data.
Out there are no saints. Just people.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. We're continuing our DS9 coverage and we're running through Season 2. We're up to Season 2, Episode 4. It's called Invasive Procedures. First aired on the 17th of October, 1993. Written by John Wepley and Robert Hewitt Wolfe. Story credit goes to John Wepley. Directed by Les Landau. In this episode, a desperate Trill tries to steal the Dax symbiont. We're joined by Amy to talk about this one. Welcome back to the show, Amy. Yeah,
Thank you for having me.
You've been highly requested, right?
Yeah.
Every day you ask me.
I'm just trying to make the people happy, so here I am.
We actually, some of the feedback we did the survey was that they want more women and that you were actually highly requested. So what do you think of that?
I mean,
or do you think that they're just
I'm
late nighting you?
I'm very flattered, but there hasn't been a big sampling of women, so maybe we need to throw some more voices in there to get a better opinion.
I don't know any other women. Anyway, we're going to be talking about invasive procedures, and I'm going to play an audio clip. Me and Amy are going to come back, and we're going to break down this episode, Invasive Procedures.
I'm sorry about all this. If everyone would just cooperate, I promise it will all be over soon.
What will be over soon?
This is an outrage. I demand to be released at once.
Enough of your whining!
Who are these people? What do they want from us?
Funny. I was about to ask you that question.
That's enough.
I agree. Now tell me what you want here.
Dax. I want Dax.
Okay, so judging by the amount of times that you asked me to stop, pause the episode, and you asked me questions, and what did I say to you as we were watching this?
He said, wait for the podcast, Amy.
Yeah. So your big fear is
he wouldn't even let me Google, like, just to review how the Trill worked. He wouldn't even let me do that.
Well, I think that the episode's going to be a good starting point for us to talk about these kind of things. I don't need you studying up on Wikipedia about the Trill and then coming on and telling me nonsense facts about it. So,
all right.
Yeah, you asked me to pause the episode a whole bunch.
Twice.
You scowled at the screen the entire 45 minutes.
I did not scowl.
And then when it was over, you had a blank look on your face and you said, I don't want to sound like an idiot on the podcast, but I don't understand what happened. So
that is not true. Wes is terrible at retelling stories. Especially stories that involve me, because they're usually like 95% inaccurate. I understand what happened. I just have some questions about how the Trill works.
Okay. So
that's all.
This is an episode that basically functions as, so we've had a character called a Trill. We've had Dax on the show for a couple seasons. Dax has generally been considered the worst character of the show so far.
Even though the Trill has great potential to be a really good character.
Yeah, the Trill have a potential to be an intriguing species if they were done right. So
like we were saying the other day, like Guinan on steroids. It could be
sort of, but with a different. Yeah, they're kind of similar to Guinan in that they live a long time, but they have kind of a different perspective because you can have different personalities apparently being pulled out of it and everything. But so we'll. I'll read ahead by saying that some of the patron feedback that we're going to read later on, the word mediocre is used frequently in that. I actually think that this episode is worse than mediocre. I actually think it's a really bad episode, and it's really not very good. And I was trying to disguise my hand as we were watching it. Because
do you want to talk about the things that are annoyingly bad in it?
Well, we'll talk about everything. So let's just talk in general. We'll save the Trill discussion for the end of it. So if we can talk about everything that's wrong with the episode outside of the Trill stuff, do you want to start? What was your first question to me was why has the station been taken over so easily?
Yeah,
right.
I mean, it's so annoying. They're all just sitting there. like doing their work with the plasma storm, and they just like watch the Klingon. They watch these guys come on, and they're like, "Okay, let's walk to them." It's like there's no guns underneath the consoles that they can. And
Starfleet's not a military organization, Amy. I'm just kidding.
They're like space soldiers. Are you kidding me? And Major Kira's a freedom fighter. You think she just like.
She got her ass kicked by that other woman.
I know. It doesn't make any sense. And you're telling me that Cisco can't disarm that, like, you know,
he has a terrible fight scene with
hooker?
the Klingon. He has a fight scene with the Klingon, who's Tim Russ, I believe, who's actually...
Oh, really?
Do you know Tim Russ?
That sounds familiar, but maybe I don't. Maybe I thought you said Tim Roth.
It's not Tim Roth. It's Tim Russ, who plays Tuvok on Star Trek Voyager.
Oh, I don't know who that is.
It's not Tim Roth or Tim whatever. The Cisco has a terrible fight scene with the Klingon.
They're all terrible fight scenes.
The whole...
I also can't believe that the Quark is the one who like set this in motion by feigning an injury. Like,
well, what do you think happened there? Actually, it would be a good question. So they find Quark in the docking bay, and he's obviously set up that little device that allows the people to get around the space station security. So do you have like a sense of what's going on? Because people generally don't like this episode because, a big problem that people have with the episode is that Quark is like nakedly evil in a certain sense. Like he is... his betrayal of the other characters seems to be so egregious that it's like, why did this happen in the first place?
And why do they keep him on there?
After it's all said and done.
Yeah, after it's like, what purpose does he serve except just to fuck things up? Like Dax almost dies because he wanted to make some money, and they all know. And Kira's like, I'm gonna have a talk with Quark. It's like just eliminate Quark. Like, why are you gonna talk to him? Like, all he does is annoy people, and it's not even, his character's not even interesting or really that funny.
Well, I think that I like Quark, but I'll say that the reason he's kept around is because he's kind of a harmless nuisance. Like the thing here is, and I think the big problem is they don't really get into the reason as to what he thinks he's going to get out of this. Like it seems like he gets played by violent terrorists in a sense.
But that's the thing. He always does. He's not even a smart thief or a smart, like he always seems to run into these problems because he never thinks things through. He's completely like one-dimensional. He just wants an easy way to get cash.
Yeah.
And that's it. And like that's basically the only thing that motivates him.
Yes. But I think that this episode is different because he so obviously gets played and has such terrible consequences or potential consequences out of what he's done. It's hard to buy what he thought he was doing in the first place. Like he obviously knew he had to disarm the security system, so that he knew that these people were up to no good, and he allowed armed I'll keep saying terror. They're not really terrorists, but they're like armed criminals onto the station. And then he's kind of surprised by the way things have gone halfway through, and he does that horrible scene where the writers try to make him save face by having him attack the Klingon. He jumps, and you laughed when he jumped on the Klingon's back. But other than that, it's like it's really, he's just so, there's no it's tough to redeem the character after that, and the episode doesn't really redeem him, in my opinion anyway. But what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think the same as you. I think it's ridiculous. Like I laughed when Kira was like, I'm gonna have a talk with Quark, and she says that like, what? I don't understand this. And I mean, it's frustrating too, because I think Cisco is such a great character. Like the show, I mean, at this point I think there's a lot of like potentially really good characters. Yeah. But it's just not like, for me.
You haven't watched a lot recently.
No, I guess I haven't watched a lot, but I don't understand, based on like the gravitas of like, you know, the whole backstory and why they're doing what they're doing. Mm-hmm. The introduction of Quark just doesn't make any sense for me. Like, I understand the comic relief, but they could do that in so many other ways. Yeah. And so many better ways. Maybe it's the way the character is written, but I just.
You obviously you don't listen to the podcast, but Quark was Clay's favorite character from the first season.
Well, I respectfully disagree. Maybe Quark
Maybe you've watched some bad episodes with Quark. I think that I would disagree with you just by saying that this is not a standard characterization of him in this episode, which is the problem with it. Kind of like the other episodes have shown him to be like he's heroic, but he is the bad hero kind of the group. You know what I mean? Like he's the sort of morally duplicitous one out of it. This episode does not justify what he thought. Like, do you think the episode would be better if he was tricked or something? Or do you think that would make him look worse than what it is? Like, how would you fix Quark's interactions with everything that goes on here?
I mean, he to me, he's always kind of tricked. Mm-hmm. Because he doesn't ever like look into what he's doing or think deeply about what he's doing. I understand the value of having a Quark as being these like the eyes and ears of,
ears.
Yeah, of like the bar scene or whatever that Odo obviously uses him to try to get at like what's.
He's the informant.
Yeah, like what other things are going on here, which I think that's a valuable piece. I see the value in that. And maybe it's just the Ferengi characterization that like their particular species is just so
one-dimensional.
Yeah, like that they're just motivated by like
wheeling and dealing.
Yeah, and greed.
Yep.
Maybe it's just this like the Ferengi that I don't like.
Yeah.
And maybe that's just the way that they have to write Quark to like fit in with that characterization. But I would like him to be like a little bit more savvy. Like I would be fine if he was completely self-motivated, but if he was like savvy and interesting and actually funny, then I could get behind him. But I don't even find him.
Well, I mean, say he was savvy and interesting.
Because he's just stupid. He just seems stupid to me.
Say he was savvy and interesting in this episode. How does the plot change? Like I think the fundamental problem is the fact that he what is he trying to do? He sells them that stuff in the bar scene, I guess. Like that's the whole. Why did they need to break onto the station to sell? Why couldn't they just come on?
There were obviously like two motivating factors. There was the Trill that needed to get on there, but then I don't understand how he came in contact with the Klingons to get that. I mean, they must have just they're like, oh, we're going there anyway to take that Trill. Let's get that stuff.
I mean, that's kind of that's the dumbness of the Quark plotline here. Like the episode to me is really just kind of
they don't even need it.
No, like that. Well, they need someone to deactivate the thing, but I feel like you could get around that by just saying the plasma storm
did it.
caused everything to break down.
Yeah, that's so true.
So they throw Quark's character under the bus for no particularly good reason. He doesn't really get a good redemption. He sort of redeems himself by breaking Odo out. The other weird thing is that they imprison Odo.
I like that part where he can break the locks. Like that kind of thing.
Yeah, fits his character.
Like I like that. If they just did more stuff with him like that. So
the takeover thing is another sort of portion of this where these criminals take over the station. They imprison Odo. They beat the shit out of O'Brien. It's the start of the O'Brien must suffer storylines, and hold everyone hostage. It's a very talky episode. There's a lot of scenes of people just sort of standing around trying to talk to each other. And I think the big failing of it is just the fact that it doesn't really have an interesting angle that it wants to take things in. It wants to be both the heist movie. It wants to be the how can you really love someone if they've changed kind of thing with the subplot between the Trill and his lady friend. It's about like, what kind of person are you? Like, what makes a person? And I think that for how like ostensibly action focused, there's really just a lot of sitting around and talking to each other, and they don't really talk about anything interesting. It's Sisko really trying to convince that woman that now that Dax is joined with another Trill host, he's going to be different, and then she's upset about that and everything like that.
Yeah, and I like how Sisko's character is. He's always thoughtful before he acts. And, I think it's almost fitting for, I obviously haven't watched as much as you have, but I think it's kind of fitting for his character to try to like look at the situation and try to like tap into the emotional side of things to try to, without using force, you know.
Yeah.
That would make more sense if they were completely outnumbered and they had weapons coming at them from all angles. But in the command center, there was one Klingon and then that one woman.
Yeah.
And there was O'Brien on the floor, Cisco, Major Kira, and Quark. And you're telling me that they couldn't have disarmed at least the woman?
Yep.
It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I was so frustrated the entire time because I see Cisco, like, you know, trying to, you know, manipulate that woman's emotions. But it's like, this is so stupid. They can just take them all out, like, break down the door of the infirmary and just save Dax.
Yep.
Nothing was stopping them from doing that. But then I don't know. That's what was so frustrating to me. Like, the whole thing.
I mean... Yeah, I'll agree that
and they never even talked about, like, maybe the plasma could have messed up their weapons, but they never even talked about that.
I don't think that was ever brought up. I'm actually looking.
And they're not holding phasers, like they're not on their belt at all times. Like, Data would have been like on that shit, like, right away.
Well, they don't carry around phasers unless there's some sort of war. It's always a big to do when they start.
I don't know. That would not have happened at Jean-Luc Picard's ship.
I mean, I think that it's a plot of convenience. Like, they say that this station had to be abandoned, and that's why they're outnumbered. Although the skeleton crew that remains is basically everyone who's in command of the station.
It's all the major commanders.
So there's no. It's not like it's Cisco and a bunch of schlubs, which actually might make more sense. Like, you could actually have like a bunch of not incompetent, but like lower ranking people who are sort of scared or whatever about what's going on. But they don't do that. It's. The whole thing, the setup for everything feels to me forced because they really want this to be about the Trill stealing a symbiont from another person. And from what it is, the reason that they wanted to do this episode was because the producers wanted to convey the idea that not every single Trill is joined, which is a question you actually had while it was going on, and that it was extremely difficult to get a symbiont. And this, they thought, would offer a commentary on the Jadzia character, insofar as she was someone who did become joined at some point. So they're trying to flesh out Jadzia Dax. I think this is probably the worst way possible to do. Did you do the Dax episode with me in the first season, where it was about Dax and they didn't have Dax in the episode for a lot of time? This is kind of the same thing. They have an episode that could be really revealing about Dax, and she is not awake without the symbiont for any portion of the time.
I mean, there's that, exactly. And you don't, like, the depth that is Dax, I feel like it does not come out. They just always talk about the 8 lifetimes of wisdom.
Yep.
But you never actually see that in action. And it's just bad writing.
Well, so I mean, the big problem with this issue is the fact that I think it only confuses the Trill. Like, as a species, like the Trill society is like deeply confused about what it is supposed to be and what it would mean to be this joined species.
Can I ask you I feel so stupid because I'm like, what is a Trill? Like, they take, I guess, like, what I'm trying to say is, like, when a Trill is born, what does a Trill look like?
A human. They look like the humans with spots. So,
okay.
But my understanding, so we'll break down the understandings there. My understanding of the Trill is that the Trill are both the symbionts and those little humanoid people, the host characters. They are all referred to as Trill, and some of them become joined with the symbionts.
And when you're joined, that organism,
the little slug thing, lives in your belly,
is put in you. Like, yes. If I'm a Trill and I've been deemed worthy of joining, they do an operation where they put a symbiont in me.
Yes, and the symbionts live for a very long time, so that's the reason that they can go through hosts.
And, like, my Trill body will die after, like, a certain amount of years.
A normal amount of human life.
And then that symbiont goes to another host.
Yes. And in the emissary, in the pilot DS9, we saw the Dax symbiont getting moved from Curzon Dax, which was the Dax that Cisco met. So that's how he knows Dax, and it went into Jadzia. And that's how her sort of origin story. And
the first name of the Trill, the Jadzia, is just the host name.
So Dax. Okay. So the confusion to me, it even goes down to that where they refer to Dax as if the symbiont and Dax are two different things. They always refer to the symbiont as if it's like its own standalone thing. Like, Cisco will be like, Dax, give back that symbiont. And I watched the episode just going, Dax is the symbiont. Like, why?
Yeah.
it's very confusing how much say the symbiont has over anything, because it seems to have absolutely no say about anything except for remembering things. Like it doesn't.
It didn't compel. I mean, it compelled Varad like to stop and be like, ooh, like I do have Dax inside of me. Like, but then the other thing. Sorry, you finish your point.
That's the whole thing is that it's very confused about what sort of agency the Dax character, like the Dax symbiont, has, where it's clear that, you know, so far the host has a big amount of input into what the symbiont has, but apparently if you put the symbiont into a immoral person, the Dax symbiont has no control over what the character starts acting like.
I also would have loved to see, because of it, sorry, how do you say her name?
Jadzia?
Jadzia Dax talks about you know, not every Trill can be joined, and if a Trill is joined improperly, which is, I guess, what is implied with Varad,
if you don't
is
pass
joined
the
with
test.
Dax, because that's an improper joining. You don't really see what happens. It's just like it's like a stronger, more confident Varad with like more hair on his chest, and it's like he seems like he's doing pretty well to me. Like I don't understand why that's a bad joining.
That's the one thing. They'll actually fix this in a future episode, or they go off of that. But I like the fact that I think that the actor who plays Varad is very good, because he plays him out as that nebbish character, and I think that joining with the symbiote should add like a level of confidence to them. And I think that the reason Jadzia Dax is not particularly good is because the actress can't portray that kind of like I'm an organism that's lived for 4 lifetimes. Like I have all this experience, which I think all the Trill should be like this.
Yeah, she's just like extremely kind. Like that's like the depth of her.
And she seems nice.
She's like very patient and kind.
Yeah, and Varad gaining the Dax symbiont, like how can you have the Dax character having conversations with Cisco when there's no regret on the symbiont's part? Like, does the symbiont feel anything?
Yeah.
What's the advantage of joining with the symbiont if it's so, they're A, immoral, they don't seem to care about anything, and B, they just seem to be basically a repository for memories that can go into people. Like there's no...
Right. Like, where's the loyalty? And because Varad, if he'd not been shot by Cisco, would have just gone on.
Yeah.
Varad Dax or whatever.
And I think that the plot would actually be better served if it wasn't a straight up criminal act of getting the Dax symbiont. Like, say Jadzia Dax got really sick or something and they had to temporarily put this is kind of what they did in the TNG episode where they introduced those, but if you had to temporarily put the symbiont into somebody else, and like the awkwardness of like, that's what the TNG episode dealt with basically, but that would go to flesh out how much control the Dax character actually has versus the host, which I feel is just really off. Like there's in the Spider-Man comics, there's a character named Venom who has like a symbiont, and it's a human who are like joined. You saw the movie, didn't you? Spider-Man 3. But they do something there that I think the Trill should do. Like they always refer to themselves as we whenever that character is talking, because it is 2 people. So it makes sense that they would refer to themselves in the plural, and like there's like a conversation going on in their head.
Right.
And the Trill don't have that conversation. So it's like it's very dull, boring. Like, why do you want to become joined? What's the advantage of the symbiont?
And what is and they did nothing to show the distinction between a Trill worthy of joining and a Trill unworthy of joining, which really
because it turns out to be the same.
Because it's Varad, I mean, unless something happens after X number of minutes or years, they do nothing to show why Varad couldn't be joined. Except the fact that he's just a dick.
It's a weird contradiction, right? Because he doesn't meet the standard for joining, so they don't give him one. But when he gets the symbiont, he seems just as capable as anybody else who, like, it seems, in some sense, it makes the...
Unless it was implying he would have misused the power instilled in him by the symbiont, which I guess, like, fine. Like, they saw in him, like, a vulnerability and a lack of confidence that shows that he wouldn't be able to use that wisdom properly. He'd probably used it for bad reasons than for, like, good. But, I mean, I think he's just doing it because he felt slighted.
I think it's internally inconsistent because we've been arguing here that through the actions of the episode, right, the host seems to have priority in the relationship. Like, the host's personality seems to take the dominant position. So why, however, once the Dax symbiont is put into Varad, is that his name, Varad?
I think so. That's what I've been calling him.
Once it's put into Varad, the Dax symbiont seems to take control. Like, the Dax symbiont just makes you a competent person at that point. So who cares what the host personality is? Even though the immorality of the host seems to take priority, once you put the symbiont in there, he just becomes a competent person. So who cares? And even if they took the episode and they explored that, like the humanoid Trills are very like meek, like they need the symbionts basically to like have like a functioning kind of personality or something. Like, they don't do that. It seems to be that the Trill humanoids are just normal people who undergo this surgery for some reason.
Yeah, that's that's what. I always freaking forget her name. Jadzia. I always want to call her Luxana, like Luxana Troy. I don't know why, but
way off. But Jadzia is not even in the episode. Why is she unconscious throughout this entire? Why not have her awake and show her what her non-Dax personality is like?
And the way that she just gave up like that really bothered me.
When she gave the symbiote up?
Yeah, I mean, I understand morally she's like, I want to save people on this ship, but I'm just like, you guys have the power to use your strength and like, you know, teamwork to like not make this happen. But they're all just like, yeah, like let's just, you know, satisfy this person and save. Well, it's funny because they play it right, like she is sort of playing a trick. She'll be like, they play it as if the host realizes that passing on the Dax symbiont would be advantageous, and you can play. The Dax symbiont will be able to play the other host or something. Oh, yeah.
But that doesn't happen. She must clearly know that when you give it up, the Dax symbiont will not do anything to like help you in the long run.
Yeah.
So why is she so willing? I would understand her being capable and willing to give it up if she thought that when she passed over the symbiont would help them on some level and make this person confused. But it doesn't do that at all.
Right.
So why does she just says she doesn't want to sacrifice her friends, but it's like.
But I think that's pointing to the weakness of the character that they haven't figured out. They haven't figured out how to characterize the Trill.
Yeah, right.
Because your point is like a really good one. I think if you they're.
You flustered.
No. I just find that whole episode just really frustrating.
No, I agree.
It was really frustrating to watch, and it was just like all this inaction. And
I mean, I think the best part is just that
you knew
guest
how it was
actor
going to end.
who played,
but...
you know how it ends, and he'll get the Trill back and everything, and yeah, I find it just really unsatisfying. It was them attempting to flesh out something that was horribly unfleshed, and they only made it more. They confusing.
Made it so much more confusing. Like at one point, I was just like, "Is that organism the Trill?" Like, I was so confused.
You're too hung up on what's the Trill.
I was really hung up on that.
It's more philosophical than that, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. There was just a whole lack of like, you know, gusto on the part of like the team on that ship, where I was like, they're just not. They did nothing to try to save Dax.
No. Which
really annoyed me.
I would have been for more scenes of, if you examined Cisco knowing, just Cisco knowing Dax is played off so pointlessly. It's
they could have, there was a lot of potential in that interaction that just fell completely flat.
I mean, why not have the Dax symbiont take more control and realize that it has to sort of sacrifice itself to save the crew that are its friends? Like, it doesn't do that. It's not, there's no argument from the symbiont's point of view of like, let me go with this guy.
When he was about to leave, he was like, oh, hey, wish we could have made it 3 lifetimes, buddy, but I guess, hey, we got to stop at 2.
We got to stop at 2. It's very weak, I think.
Yeah.
But oddly, the producers actually kind of liked this episode. I'll read a couple things, which is very weird. Ira Stephen Bear wrote, Glover was great, but so was Megan Gallagher. I thought she was just wonderful. It was one of my favorite shows of the season. I love the stuff with Varad becoming Dax and the scene with him and Cisco where he's suddenly his friend. It was very interesting material. Robert Hewitt, I'm really pleased with Invasive Procedures. Glover's Varad turned in a tour de force performance. I agree with that. Avery, as usual, was great. Les Landau gave it excellent direction. Michael Pillar said, I've been extremely pleased with the growth of Terry's performance. I thought she was very touching in this episode, and the ensemble really worked well together. I thought their emotionality of the Trill stuff was very melodramatic. None of it really landed for me, but that's about it. So the producers kind of liked it, but I did not like it. So we're going to take a break.
I really disagree with all of that.
We're going to take a break. We're going to play an audio clip, and then me and Amy are going to come back. We're going to have our final thoughts, and we'll read some patron thoughts.
Looks like that goodbye was a little premature.
Don't be ridiculous. You're not going to shoot me.
What makes you so sure?
This is Dax you're talking to, Benjamin. We both know that if you shoot me, even on stun, you risk killing the symbiont.
If I let you go, Jadzia dies.
But Dax will live. What's one girl's life compared to 8 lifetimes of knowledge and experience?
Nerd everybody, we're back. We're going to be going through our final thoughts and our patron thoughts here. So we'll do the patron thoughts first. Do you want to read them? You're leering at the paper.
Holly McLaughlin.
McLaughlin. She's yelled at me on Twitter for that.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, that's not an A. Allie was looking at his picture the other day. That's Holly's picture,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Invasive Procedures. Love seeing Tim Russ. Nice to get more insight into the symbiont host relationship and logistics. Yeah, I mean, I like thinking about the Trill, but this one just made me feel confused and frustrated about the Trill.
I mean, I'm desperately wanting... I don't think the Trill ever actually get fleshed out.
But it has such potential. It's such a good idea.
Yeah, it is. It's just they never...
It's so annoying the way they can't... It's the same thing that I felt with Troy. Where it's like...
I think it's more than that. Like, Troy at least makes sense on some level. Like, there's little bits of, like, why can't she do this at this point kind of stuff that they have to write around. But there's no superpower to the Trill. Dax is basically a very smart person. Like, that's the only advantage that we've seen so far, is that she's very capable of solving science problems. Like, that's the extent of it, and there's nothing else that the joining really seems to give that character.
Yeah, where they always talk about this wisdom of years, but it doesn't really emerge.
Come across, yeah.
Zam Nuclear Wessel.
Mm-hmm.
Invasive Procedure is a very mediocre trek. You have some fun performances from the guest stars, but the use of the main cast doesn't quite fit. Quark is too nakedly criminal, and you have Dax disappearing from her own story again. Not terrible, just full of the kinds of mistakes Trek writers on TOS and TNG already made and learned from.
Joint Mango is next. Invasive Procedures. Decent episode with bonus Tuvok.
I don't know what's Tuvok.
Tuvok is Tim Russ, not Tim Roth, but is the character on Voyager.
Should have been Tim Roth. No, but Tim Russ he was good. Stephen Kalb. Invasive Procedures. Zam Nuclear Wessel summed it up best with how blatantly criminal Quark is in the episode. I think some better explanation as to what the bad guys told Quark they were going to do would help clarify. I find it hard to believe that Quark would sell the crew out like that.
Yeah. I mean, I'd agree that.
Yeah, that was
Quark's...
to be so nefarious.
Quark there needed to be a scene where Quark explained what the hell was going on, because what he did actually didn't make a lot of sense.
And I guess like going back to what you said, if he was tricked, if he just thought this was going to be like a transaction between like two Klingons not understanding the ulterior motive.
I just don't know if tricking him is right, if playing the character off as stupid in that case works. Maybe it does, but it's hard to say.
Yeah.
Do you want me to read the next one? Then you can read the last one.
Okay.
Matt Ross writes, Invasive Procedures. Ugh, didn't we just escape TNG seasons 1 to 2? This was like oral surgery through my behind with so many cliches. No duh, he's going to go back to Jadzia. If they used the love to solve the problem, it would have been better. I have just too many issues, like where the hell is the crew? And don't give me they're all away for the storm. Really? Everybody? If I recall, some guy said they couldn't run a starship with 19 people in case M5 went bad, but I digress. Why is there no security protocols anywhere? This feels like a leftover script. At least we know Tim Russ has range, and the only Quark has lobes to take out the Klingon. And here's a glaring question. Odo's comm badge. Sometimes it turns liquids, but they take it off him. What the hell? This show, his comm badge does work. I didn't really understand the... Trapping Odo is just... I guess just because you don't want a shapeshifter.
Yeah, like he could have... Yeah, he would have been difficult to defend against.
It is a... I always think of the Ghostbusters. It's very Ghostbustery what they do when they just...
Yeah.
Odo is funny because you can sort of just... take care of him if you put him in a box, basically. Like, you know, he's he containing him is relatively easy.
You know what? Who else Otto is like? That this just
Otto.
Yeah, Otto.
Odo.
Sorry, that's terrible. Remember the Secret World of Alex Mack?
Yeah,
that's what she would do.
but she had more powers, right? She could shapeshift and
I think she could like.
she had like psychic powers.
She could like do things with her mind too, but she always turned into that gel, and she was able to like travel around.
She could make heads explode. And...
Yeah, that made me like go back. I loved Alex Mack. Okay, Kyle Barrett. Invasive procedures. It's strange having DS9 evacuated 2 episodes in a row. Did they just forget to ask the extras back? That episode works, although it's nothing special because of the guest actor who completely changes his posture and speech patterns when he gets joined with Dax. It's a cool way of showing how much power the symbiote has. Also, Cisco asking Dak if she knows Varad just because he is a Trill is incredibly racist. They don't all know each other.
You disagree?
I just had to read that sentence again. Asking Dax if she knows Varad just because he is a Trill is incredibly racist.
It's like when you go when you
well,
go
she
back,
looked. I mean, I think he was like basing off of how she was looking at him.
I think he's making a joke, baby.
Oh.
It's just saying it's like if you go back to or someone says you're from New Jersey, do you know Bob?
No, I get it. I get it, Kyle.
So, DS9 was evacuated 2 in a row, though this was a much low key evacuation. The previous episode had a big attack on the station.
Yeah, they weren't worried about this plasma storm at all.
It's a rare event that you actually see stormy stuff going on outside the station, though. We don't really see that very frequently. And I agree. I think that the guest actor joining with Dax was something that they should have fleshed out. You know, if the performance is good enough to do that, then I think you have to flesh out the reason as to why you want to make that a focal point of your episode. Mm-hmm. As it stands, it just seems like it's what is it? Are those B4 shots that people always claim make you like feel great?
B12.
B12. It's basically just the Star Trek equivalent of a B12 injection. And you're like, wow, I feel wonderful and confident, and I can go hit on chicks.
Yeah, there was a doctor I used to work with at the clinic.
He was a Trill.
Yeah, and he would say whenever she didn't know what was going on with the patient, she would just give a vitamin B12 shot, and they always left a little bit happier.
That's why my health insurance costs so much. That's about it, guys. Thank you very much. As always, if you want to leave comments about the upcoming shows, you can go to patreon.com/thepenskyfile, and you can post on one of the posts there about the upcoming episodes. We read them out on the podcast. Thank you very much, guys, for writing in. It's fun to read the comments. Now we're going to give our rating on our 1 to 5 scale. Amy, what are you going to give Invasive Procedures?
I don't know. Tim Russ was good. However,
Tim Russ is the Klingon, I believe. So Tim Russ is not good. The actor you're talking about.
No,
Varad,
that's not.
That's not Tim Russ.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought the actor that played Varad was good.
Yeah.
Excuse me. But I don't think that saves it enough. I think it's a 2.
2?
Yeah.
I'll give it a 1 because I think it's pretty awful. So
okay. Well, I feel better now.
I don't think it works on any level. I think it confuses the Trill, and I think it's actually a very boring episode. Even though it's kind of action based, it's really dull and boring.
What happened to O'Brien after his shoulder was mended? He just sat there.
Well, he got shot with a phaser, and then the guy kicked him when he was on the ground when he tried to get up. So he was
just down.
He was just down.
Too bad.
A running theme is that O'Brien is the character who gets the shit kicked out of him. That's kind of the...
Yeah, he was already guilt-ridden. He blamed himself for what happened. Poor guy.
He's the opposite of Quark. But yeah, I think that's it. I'm going to give it a 1. Amy will give it a 2. I think this is a very bad episode. It just kind of squanders.
I agree. It was a generous 2. It probably doesn't deserve that. I just didn't want to come across as too mean.
Yeah, it squanders a lot of good faith. But anyway, you can check out all the social media links. They'll be in the video description. You can go to patreon.com/thepenskyfile if you want to support the show. Let us know anything else that's going on. Leave your comments, all that jazz. I think we're done. Thank you for coming on the show, Amy.
No, thanks for having me. We'll try to get some more ladies on.
Yes.
We'll get Wes out there again.
That's
we just bought a snowblower, and Wes was using that today, so maybe he can just walk down the street with that and pick up some ladies.
I'll take my shirt off and snowblow the driveway. Yeah, that'd be like a It's like a comedy sketch. Like you go to a bar and it's like you're trying to like pick up a third wheel for your threesome or something. It's like you invite them back to the podcast about Star Trek.
So, do you watch DS9?
That's pretty much my ultimate. DS9 is the sexiest sounding of the Star Trek titles.
Yeah.
Might be Voyager, actually, might be.
Yeah, it's all in how you say it. It's all in the tone.
Yeah, it's Star Trek Voyager.
Do you watch Deep Space Nine?
Nice. With that, we're going to call it a day. Let's see. I think that's it. You want to say goodbye?
Bye, guys.
All right. Thank you very much for listening. We will see you next time.